Hello and welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Friday, June 19th. This is episode 111 of the Inside the Huddle podcast. Thank you as always for joining us. Make sure to please like and subscribe here on YouTube. Another week, another show, week off last week, but we are back here late June. Mandatory mini camps across the NFL are wrapping up. We now have hit the final home stretch of the offseason, summer break for all 32 NFL teams. And soon enough, it'll be late July. Training camps across the league will be kicking off. We'll be talking welcome back weekend in the NFL, getting ready for the Pro Football Hall of Fame game, which I always think is a big landmark spot in the NFL calendar. Once the Hall of Fame game happens, that's when you know we're into August. That's when you know it's preseason training camps here, and we're at that point only about a month out from the season. So little by little, we're getting here. Little by little, we're getting through the NFL offseason, continuing to provide content for all of you. DiMari, another week, another episode. The NBA is done. The NHL is done. MLB regular season is in full swing. It's the dog days of summer for the MLB season, the grind of 162. So now, really, the next four major sport, we wait. It's NFL that'll kick off, of course, in September. So the countdown now is officially on. How's it going, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good. For those that like to watch MLB, not much of a problem. Like, you still got something to watch basically every single day. So shout out if you are a baseball fan. But if not, yeah, you got to wait until, like you said, the Hall of Fame game. And I know a lot of us are itching for that Hall of Fame game. Meaningless football, baggy jerseys, strange jersey numbers. Like, we see all these things in the Hall of Fame game, but football is football. And like you said, next thing you know, we are going to be watching that game right around the corner from there, like 3 weeks or so. That is week 0 of college football. And once college football kicks off, boom, now we're talking about NFL week 1. So slowly we are getting there. Like you said, mini camps are starting, and that's good news for some. For some teams out there with players holding out, some of your guys may have reported, some of your guys may have not, so now you're stressing about that. But other than that, middle of June, we're right around the corner, but we got a good episode today, so let's get into it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The NFL is next up on the list of, I guess, 4 major professional sports here. And I believe, just taking a quick peek, I think the Hall of Fame game is... Who is in the Hall of Fame game? I think it's Carolina, Arizona, August 6th, Thursday. That is the Hall of Fame game this year. So we will see Cardinals.
Beck. Okay.
Yeah, maybe a little Carson Beck. Caden Slovis, I think he's over there too from BYU. Maybe get him in the third, fourth quarter. From Carolina's perspective, let's just take a quick peek at the depth chart. Who there is. We'll probably get some Will Greer reps.
Yeah.
That's always fun. So, Will Greer, preseason legend. Dallas Cowboys preseason legend.
That is true.
Knew he was going to get cut, still went out there and balled out.
That is true. That's a guy. That's a stand-up guy right there.
Yep.
Love Will Greer. West Virginia legend, UF legend. Yeah.
And we'll probably get some Kenny Pickett reps, which turn the TV off for those. That's all I will say. Steelers fans, hide your eyes.
Yeah, cook the dinner for the fan when Kenny Pickett takes his field.
Yeah, do the laundry, make the dinner. Just don't do anything but look at the TV when Kenny Pickett's out there.
Yeah.
Anyway, got that to look forward to here in a little less than 2 months, obviously, and training camp and all that fun stuff. So we've hit the final home stretch. This is kind of the final little break period if you're an NFL fan, because once training camp hits, it just flies. There's practices every single day. You've got preseason, and boom, before you know it, it's the end of August, and you're talking 53-man roster, and all of a sudden it's game week. So things will really start to pick up here. But we've got some things to discuss today, 2 major topics. We'll get into Sean Payton first here. He was rewarded with a new contract extension, so we'll dive into that, what that means for the Broncos. And we'll also dive into some quarterbacks. Which quarterbacks in their second year could potentially make the biggest jump, is in the best spot to make the biggest jump. We'll dive into Tyler Shuck. We'll dive into Jackson Dart. We'll dive into Cam Ward, as all 3 quarterbacks enter year number 2. And all 3 quarterbacks showed things last year that should make you feel good if you're a Saints, Giants, or Titans fan entering year 2 for all 3 of those players. All 3 of those players, or actually 2 of the 3, under new coaching staffs: Cam Ward, Jackson Dart. Tyler Shuck, of course, gets another year under Kellen Moore. So we'll see how that plays out, but we'll touch on that a little bit later on. But we'll start here with a Denver Broncos team that was in the AFC title game last year. The year before that, got to the wild card. Sean Payton, 3 years in, 2 of the 3 seasons, made the playoffs, and a good reason why they lost that conference title game was without Bo Nix. Jared Stidham, of course, started that game. I think if Bo Nix doesn't get hurt, Broncos probably win that game. I don't know if they go on and beat the Seahawks, but I think they give the Seahawks a much better run for their money than New England. That's besides the point, though. Fact of the matter is the work that Sean Payton has done in Denver has been very, very good since coming over in 2023. And with that, they have rewarded him with a 5-year contract extension, which ties him to the organization through the 2030 season. It also aligns him now pretty perfectly with the general manager, George Payton, who put himself also in a position where he is tied with the organization through 2030. So GM, head coach on the same wavelength now from a contract standpoint. They are fully connected at the hip, building this thing for the next 5 years really here. And I think this is a well-deserved contract when you look at what Sean Payton has done. This was a Denver Broncos team. I think in a lot of ways, some people actually have underrated the job that Sean Payton has done in Denver. I think a lot of people forget how bad the Denver Broncos were, the bad spot that they have been in since that 2015 Super Bowl, where they win that Super Bowl, the defense, Peyton Manning goes out with a ring in his final year. And then after that, they don't make the playoffs again until 2024. They go on a bit of a drought. There was some really bad seasons, some really bad quarterback play. You go through the long list. You had Teddy Bridgewater for a little bit, Drew Lock. You had the Joe Flacco disaster. You had Paxton Lynch, Case Keenum, Marcus Simeon. There was a long list. Brock Osweiler there early on in the beginning, right after Peyton Manning. A long list of bad quarterbacks. A list of bad coaches. Vance Joseph, great DC, terrible head coach. Vic Fangio, same thing, great defensive coordinator. 3 years there, all 3 losing seasons. Not a good head coach. Nate Hackett was a one and done. Peyton took over a bad Russell Wilson situation, took over a terrible coaching job in the previous year where Nate Hackett didn't even survive the first season. He didn't even survive a whole year. Won 8 games with Russell Wilson, despite all of the issues around him and that Broncos team. Drafted Bo Nix and has made the playoffs each of the last 2 years. Took that big jump last season from 10 wins to 14. And this is a team that's got to be right back in the conversation to be a Super Bowl contender here in 2026. Sean Payton has done as good as a job as anybody in terms of turning around this Broncos team. So well deserved.
Yeah, 100%. And, just doing my notes up on Sean Payton and just getting ready for this segment, when I'm kind of looking at the Broncos roster, this might be a hot take, but for a team that was the number 1 seed and won their first division title since that, Super Bowl in 15, this roster's kind of underwhelming, like offensively at least. When you look at the names on the roster, the depth chart, it's kind of underwhelming. Like they don't have a lot of guys that really stand out to you. It's not a lot of all pros. So I think that makes what Sean Payton has done even more impressive. And you talked about just how bad Denver was during that stretch of, after the Super Bowl to this point. Sean Payton has stepped in, and in his first 3 seasons, he's won 32 games with that team, which would be the second most in the first 3 seasons for a Broncos head coach. Very impressive. Like, he's already marked his way in the history books for the Broncos organization. And he has come in and completely turned that team around. You went through the quarterback list. And for those that, are very big NFL fans, you have known that the Broncos, after Peyton Manning, that organization has been, I don't want to say a doormat, but they've been very laughable. They were one of those teams where you look at Denver and, your team might play Denver and have them on the schedule, and you're like, oh, it's just another week. Oh, this is practically a bye week, because they've been so bad. But now they are, you could probably argue, they're the top dog in the NFL. And I know, obviously, Bo Nix got hurt, like you mentioned, and that was the reason they didn't make it to the Super Bowl. But you look at this Denver team this year, with once again that kind of underwhelming roster, as long as Sean Payton is on that sideline, this is a team to be reckoned with. They are scary. They are a very fundamental good football team. They are disciplined, and that's why they're so good. So for Sean Payton, I mean, kind of how things ended in New Orleans to get that second chance to go to Denver and revive that organization. I mean, he's more than deserving of this. And you said they are both him and the GM locked through 2030. That tells me, hey, we need a Super Bowl within that time span, and I think they are more than capable than doing it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I think you're spot on with the roster evaluation. Obviously, they went out and got Jalen Waddle this offseason, and that was kind of a big boost, a bold trade, a little bit of a blockbuster move, getting a legitimate second receiver along with Courtland Sutton, although I think in a lot of ways Jalen Waddle's probably better than Courtland Sutton, and you're looking at him as more of the 1A and Sutton's more of the 1B or really number 2. But they've done a lot of this with okay talent. I mean, J.K. Dobbins last season, missed a bit of a time. He had I think under 772 yards, which was solid in 10 games. But their run game was really not even a factor in 2024 when you go back and look at the wild card season. I mean, you're looking at Javonte Williams prior to his breakout in Dallas. This was a guy who in 17 games had just over 500 yards. You had Jaleel McLaughlin, Tyler Beatty, Aldrick Estime. Like, there was some really just not great running backs. And then from a wide receiver perspective, you're looking at guys like Marvin Mims Jr., Lil Jordan Humphrey as your number 2, number 3 options, which on paper does not look anything like a playoff caliber roster, does not look anything like number 2, number 3 options for a team that can make a wild card, for a team that can get it to a deep playoff run into the AFC title game. And I think a lot of that speaks to just Sean Payton's coaching. And we've talked about this a ton, but you look at New England last year, they weren't the most talented team ever, but Mike Vrabel, the coaching staff, they certainly elevated that team and got the most out of that talent. And I think that's the same thing you're seeing with Denver. They're not the most talented football team in the world. I also think most people would look at Bo Nix and say he's not the most talented quarterback in the world. There has certainly been some bad Bo Nix moments. I don't know how to view Bo Nix really, because I think he's done the job, but I think in some aspects it's been at times underwhelming. But then he goes out there against Buffalo, throws 3 touchdowns, nearly 300 yards, and it's like, okay, that guy's a stud. But then there's moments where, and I always go back to that Thursday night slop that we saw against Vegas, where he looked lost against a Raiders team that eventually got the number 1 overall pick at home. There's no reason Bo Nix should have struggled as badly as he did. I bring that up to say, even with the at times inconsistent quarterback play from Bo Nix, and maybe a little bit of a underwhelming year 2 after what he showed in year 1, they still went out there, won 14 games. The defense was elite. A lot of that credit goes to Vance Joseph. And they made it work offensively. And I think you look at the offense now and you add Jalen Waddle to the mix on top of Sutton. Very good offensive line. The run game was better last year. I think you look at it and say the offense should be better. How do you view Bo Nix, I guess, entering year 3? Because it's a little bit of a complicated conversation sometimes when Bo Nix gets brought up.
It's like, I don't know. It's like before, they're in the locker room, they're about to go out for pregame warm-up, or, they're about to go out there before the game kicks off, and he, flips a coin. It's like, hey, I'm either Dan Marino today or I'm going to be Jamarcus Russell. Let's see which one it lands on. Because, like you mentioned, you got games you go out there and he lights it up. And you're just like, this is what they this is who they drafted. This is the Bo Nix we saw at Oregon. Phenomenal. And if you watch college football as well, and you watch Bo Nix, you understand this next one. But then the other side of them, you're watching, first year Auburn Bo Nix, and you're just like, is this guy blind? Like, what is he looking at on the field? So it's kind of hard to gauge Bo Nix. And I guess to back up your point is, it's so impressive though, because when he's not playing well, and you can probably say maybe I'm wrong, you feel like you're seeing a lot more not too well Bo Nix or mediocre Bo Nix this past season than you saw superstar level Bo Nix. And they still won 14 games. So that just speaks on the coaching around them. And I know I talked about the roster being underwhelming, but those guys stepped up when they needed to, and that's a big part of it. So when those guys stepping up when he's not looking his best, I think that speaks a lot of volumes. But I just mean back to the Bo Nix point of it's kind of so hard because I don't think he's in that category of okay, well, Bo Nix is going to completely take over a game, but I also don't think he falls in the category of you're going to lose a lot of games because of Bo Nix. He's literally slap in the middle.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think he is. I think the coin flip's a great analogy. There's times where he goes out there and plays very well. He goes out there. He had the 3-touchdown game against Indy. I know they lost, but had the 4-touchdown game against Green Bay. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I think the Dallas game he played well too. Yeah. Dallas game. Yep, he went off 4 touchdowns there as well. And then there's the games where he goes out there, throws the 2 picks against Vegas. The opener against Tennessee, even though they won that game, wasn't his best game. Threw 2 picks in that game as well. That was more of just the Titans are such a bad football team that the Broncos ended up winning that game, and defensively too.
That Giants game up until the 4th quarter where they couldn't even move the ball for 3 quarters, took over. Philly game, they came back. It's just so many instances of Bo Nix being so bad, and like
the Jets game, he didn't even play well in.
Yeah.
The whole offense that game against the Jets, they won 13-11 against a Jets team that won 3 games. And offensively, the Jets were incompetent last year. So, yeah, there was a lot of those games where he didn't play well. I think that Kansas City game, too, even though they won it at home, I don't think he even threw a touchdown in that game. I think that was more probably defensively what they were able to do. Potentially, if I'm remembering it correctly. A lot of the defense won a lot of games last year. The Broncos were one of the prime examples in the NFL that defense can still win championships. I know they didn't ultimately win the Super Bowl, but a lot of in modern day NFL, I think offense definitely favored. The whole defense win championships motto doesn't carry as much weight as it once did, just because it's such an offensive league now. But the Broncos proved a lot of people wrong last year because I think everybody, myself included, I think at times, even with them winning as much as they did, and after starting 1-2, they went on the 11-game win streak, I think, where they got to 12-2. I still think you were always wondering, is this team legit? Is this team for real? Because a lot of those games was defense, and you always wondered, okay, if there's one day where they get into a shootout against a Buffalo or get into a shootout against one of these other top teams in the AFC, you had your doubts if they could come through and win that game. And they proved against Buffalo that they could do it. Now, defensively, that also helped that game too. I mean, Josh Allen and the Bills and their playoff failures also impacted that game as well. But they proved in a lot of ways that they could do it. And look, I've said this, Broncos, Rams, Super Bowl.
It's not crazy. I like how I think we both, did I go Chargers? We both have AFC West teams.
Chargers, yeah. Chargers is a good one.
Which is
very interesting.
We both like AFC West, but I think that just talks about the division as a whole. But now I have a question because you're on Broncos here. Where do they go? It feels like 14. They're not winning 15 games. It feels like 14-3 was the absolute ceiling that they were going to reach. So how do they follow up a 14-3? Because if we're talking about 11-6 next season, they underperformed. If we're talking about 12-5 next season, they underperformed. So where do they go from there this year to kind of back up that Linsanity run that they had last year?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to repeat 14-3. That's very hard to do. I mean, they're not going 15-2. I think they're probably a 12-win team. But I think ultimately it matters just finishing the job this time in the playoffs. And that's now the story with Denver. Little by, just like any other team, little by little, okay, 1 year you make the playoffs. That's all cool, right? They made the wild card game in 24. They got crushed by Buffalo, but they surprised everybody. They were the cool little engine that could. Same goes for the, I mean, same goes for the Bills in the early parts of the Josh Allen years. Same goes for a lot of the Texans are kind of in that same boat now where it's like, all right, you made the playoffs 3 years in a row. You've had 3 playoff wins. Let's get past the division round. CJ Stroud, do you have what it takes to get to an AFC title game? Do you have what it takes to do enough with the defense they have to make a deep run? So I guess my point to all of this is I think we're getting to a point with Denver where regular season-wise record, I don't think it matters too much. Like if they win 11 games this year, if they win 12 games this year, is it the 14 they won last year? No. But ideally, from a Broncos standpoint, those 12 wins turns into going to a Super Bowl, winning 11 games, but then finishing the job getting to a Super Bowl. Because the Broncos are on this even path. Wild card, lost AFC title game. The next step is Super Bowl, right? That's the next step. Maybe they don't get to the Super Bowl this year, but then next year, they're in the position now where it's, you can't go wild card, AFC title game, then wild card again, and then wild card, and then divisional round. Like, they've got to get to a Super Bowl within 2 to 3 years, it feels like. The fact that they were knocking on the door last year. So I think it's more just playoff success. As long as they get to the playoffs, that's all that matters. It's kind of like Buffalo. I've gone to the point with the Buffalo Bills where I don't value anything they do in the regular season. I just don't. Because how many more years are we going to see Buffalo win 12, 13 games and fall short? You know? Like that's kind of where I'm at. Call me a Bills hater. I don't care. I'm just, it's just the truth.
It's just the truth. And I mean, we seen it with Dallas with McCarthy when they went 12-5.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, that's great. You can win 12 games in the regular season. You look like a force in the regular season. Let's see what you do when we start playing football in middle of January. That's what's important. So I do agree. I think Denver, that's the point that they're at. The only thing from Denver, hoping we don't see this, is that Lion-esque type trajectory where this Lions team was just a game away from the Super Bowl, and now they're struggling to even get into the playoffs, it feels like. So for Denver, I mean, you kind of got the target on your back. I honestly think numbers are probably already out. Odds are probably already out. And if Denver's not the favorite to come out of the AFC, they're definitely top 3. So now, you mentioned the Waddle trade, and Denver looks at that trade and said, this is the piece to get us over. Sean Payton, you got paid. You're there for quite a while. You can't fall down that, Lions trajectory. You have to get to the Super Bowl within these next, I want to say 2 to 3 years, but you definitely have to win one before your contract expires.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I'll be honest, as much praise as we've given Sean Payton, and he deserves a lot of it, a very big part of the offense and Bo Nix is Davis Webb as well.
Yeah.
There's been times where we've seen Payton and Bo Nix not always seem like the best of friends. Like there's some arguments we've seen on the sidelines. I think a lot of times Davis Webb is kind of the peacemaker between the two of them. He is sort of the translator between the two of them, where Payton might be a little bit more that old school coach, Bo Nix, young player, Davis Webb, more of that younger, innovative offensive mind. He is kind of the buffer between the two. And the reason I bring that up is Davis Webb is a guy that a lot of people are high on of being a head coach at some point. If Denver goes out there this season and wins 12 games and gets to an AFC title game and the offense looks good and Bo Nix, let's say, plays well, like even if Bo Nix has the type of season he had last year, a lot of teams would take that type of season from a quarterback. As much as you may feel there's some meat left on the bone, which both of us do, there's still a lot of good. But Davis Webb is going to be a hot commodity on the coaching market. And I say that to bring up the point of, not that I think the wheels are going to fall off if Davis Webb is gone, but Sean Payton, Bo Nix, I don't think they have the success that they have without Davis Webb. And Webb might not be a guy that you can necessarily replace right away. And we're starting to see that with Detroit. It was a disaster after year one with Ben Johnson. And I think the Lions point you bring up is a great point because a lot of times you see teams not be able to finish the job because they lose that one really good coordinator and they're not able to fill that one really good coordinator's role. And I'm not saying Davis Webb's going to be Ben Johnson 2.0, and he's not even really under that category because he doesn't call the plays, but he is very involved in those meetings. Again, I kind of say the peacemaker at times between Payton and Bo Nix. I think if you ask Bo Nix, he's probably got a stronger relationship with Davis Webb than he does with Sean Payton. But it's just like any workplace. You're not going to get along great with everybody you work with. You got to make it work, and they do make it work. They have made it work with the winning seasons that they've had the last 2 years. But all of a sudden, you talk about this 2 to 3 year window, Davis Webb gets plucked away, you don't win a Super Bowl. Now all of a sudden you're scrambling a bit trying to find that next OC for this team. So, I mean, look, Jim Leonard, right? He went to Buffalo as the DC. He was a very hot commodity from a defensive coordinator standpoint, and he was a big piece to that defense to the point where he was assistant head coach last year. They promoted him. That's sometimes the struggle with winning, is once you start to lose coaches on the coaching staff. So this is a Denver team that you extend Sean Payton, him and the GM's in lockstep. The coaching staff is still very much put together, even though you lost Jim Leonard, very much put together. There's a chance that at some point Vance Joseph might get it. They go out there and have the best defense in the NFL again. Vance Joseph, just like this past offseason, he's going to be getting calls to get another opportunity as a head coach. So now's the time, because the Lions are learning the hard way. No more Ben Johnson. Last year was a disaster. They've already gone through 2 different offensive coordinators now in 2 years since Ben Johnson left. Of course, Aaron Glenn. They've replaced him easily. Of course, the team that I root for, the coach they hire, can't be the guy that everyone's like, oh, you lost Aaron Glenn. Of course, it has to be. We had a 50% chance of Aaron Glenn being the Ben Johnson for the Jets. And of course, in typical Jets fashion, Aaron Glenn stinks. The Lions find his replacement easily. And of course, Ben Johnson goes to Chicago, makes the playoffs, and Detroit looks lost without him. Only the Jets, right?
It's the way the cookie crumbles for you. Sometimes better be lucky than actually good. And
yeah, I guess
it's
so.
not been a lot of good luck for the Jets.
No, never is. Never has been. And I will continue to stand on this, and then we'll move on to quarterbacks. One of the biggest mistakes the Jets made, was not making a stronger push for Payton after 22 and not going after, or at least calling, Jim Harbaugh and Mike Vrabel after the 23 season. But I digress. Anyway, let's talk some quarterbacks, or continue to talk some quarterbacks, minus Bo Nix. A few year 2 quarterbacks here. Who may take the biggest jump? Who's in the best spot to take the biggest jump? Tyler Shough, Jackson Dart, Cam Ward, all year 2 quarterbacks. You know what's funny is I think this past year's quarterback class and what you saw to Dart and Shough and Ward, and whether or not you like all 3 quarterbacks, whether or not you believe in all 3 quarterbacks, I think everybody could safely say you saw good things out of all 3 of them. There was positives out of all 3 of them, but there was certainly some ugly things from all 3 of them. But I think with this past year's quarterback class, it is a very good class for the fans out there that don't always believe in you have to get the number 1 overall pick. Don't always believe in you have to be terrible to draft the best quarterback, because while, yes, Cam Ward was the number 1 overall pick, Tyler Shough was a 2nd-round pick, and Jackson Dart, the Giants traded back into the back half of the 1st round to take him 25th overall. So this, for me, is just a good example of, sure, we could go through the long list of top 10, top 5 quarterbacks, but last year was actually a good class to show people that you can get a quarterback in multiple different ways. You don't always have to completely suck for a quarterback, because you could trade for one in the back half of the 1st round. You could find a guy like Tyler Shough in the 2nd round. And not to spoil my opinion, but I will say this. Out of 3 of these quarterbacks, the guy that was drafted number 1 overall, I don't think is going to be the best of these 3. And I think that shows you something. So I could be wrong, but
Whoa.
maybe I spoiled myself. Where you stand? You don't.
Whoa. Oh, I wasn't expecting that. I was going to say the guy that was the first
drafted number
overall
one.
pick
All right.
was going to be
Fair.
the best. I mean, and not even because he went first overall, but if you just look at Cam Ward's numbers, that roster was awful. I mean, the guy threw for almost 3,200 yards. If you go look at Tennessee's stats, you go pull up just the overall stats, ESPN, whatever. They didn't have a single guy on that receivers list that went over 575 yards, and he had 3,169, almost 3,200 yards. And then your best receiver only plays 7 games. So we're talking about a Titans team where the offense was horrible, your receivers were horrible, your run game wasn't the best. I think we're both on the same page with Tony Pollard.
Offensive line.
No offensive line. Thank you for bringing that up. But you look at Tony Pollard, and we're both kind of just like, Pollard's a good back. Is he your one option? Is he your bell cow that you're going to win playoff games with? Absolutely not. So we're talking about Cam Ward with a bunch of guys that probably wouldn't be first or second options on their teams, and he had almost 3,200 yards. Now you bring over Carnell Tate. Now you got a new head coach, which I know from your experience, that's not a good thing in this case. But you have an offensive coordinator who has proven that he's very good with young quarterbacks that's about to come over and, be the guy to make the calls. I think Cam Ward is going to be exceptional. I think he's going to take another step. And, I mean, I know this is kind of crazy that I'm about to say this, but respectfully, I'm a little shocked here. The Chicago Bears has not had a 4,000-yard passer in, franchise history. Cam Ward kind of almost did it. I know he was still very far off, but kind of almost did it with talent that was lackluster. You got to give a guy props. Cam Ward was very good last year for, what he was working with.
Look, I definitely have – I look at Cam Ward and I agree with a lot of what you have to say, right? He had no offensive line. The coaching was a disaster. We talk about the fact that, look, we all could have predicted that Brian Callahan would have been fired. Yeah. We all could have predicted that. That was one of the most, and that is my biggest concern, not to make this about the Jets. That's my biggest concern with Aaron Glenn. Brian Callahan and Aaron Glenn, year one, looked about the same. They looked completely lost. Everybody and their mother could have predicted Brian Callahan was not going to work. And the fact that they let him draft a quarterback, now, that was the easiest decision to draft Cam Ward at number one. There was nobody else even in conversation there. I mean, I guess Shador, who ends up falling to, whatever, the 5th round. But to allow him to get his hands on a quarterback after we all saw what happened in 2024 was ludicrous. So that is a direct shot at the Titans, where they did not put Cam Ward in the best situation possible. And I 100% agree with you, where he was in a bad spot. I'm so sick and tired of this about me. One of my biggest pet peeves in the NFL is drafting a quarterback and firing the coach after his first year, firing the coach halfway through. I'm so sick of NFL teams doing that. When a guy not to make this all about Brian Callahan, but a guy like Brian Callahan, we all knew was terrible at his job. And yet you're going to hand him the keys to a number one overall pick. It's like giving the guy that doesn't know how to drive a Lamborghini and saying, here, figure it out. There's so many examples of it. I hate it with teams and because now he's got to learn a new system year 2. Jackson Dart, same category, halfway through the season, right? Now, Dart's a little different because I don't think Dart is there without Dable. Dable pushed heavily for Dart, so I think that's a little different just because if they fire Dable and Shane, I think there's a very good chance Jackson Dart is not a New York Giant right now. So that, I guess, a little different. But still, they fired Dable halfway through the year, right? And who knows? Maybe the other regime would have came in and drafted Dart anyway. We really don't know. But I don't know exactly how high the rest of the league was on Dart. But Cam Ward was put in about as bad as a position as possible. And I totally agree with you there, too. You're probably going to hate me for that. I mean, I think his leading receiver was the tight end. Okwanu or Kwanu, whatever, however.
Okonkwo, he had 560.
And an Alec I. Manor, who you drafted in the 4th round, day 3, was your leading receiver. I mean, that is as bad as it gets. Tony Pollard, we both know, is washed. The offensive line was a disgrace. We talk about the game against Denver. He was running for his life, his first game of his NFL career. And despite all of that, he went out there, the 15 touchdowns, 3,100 yards. There was a lot of good. You'd like to see the completion percentage a bit higher, but I think a lot of that also has to do with just the surrounding factors. And look, I think there's things Cam Ward can grow on too. I think he can get the ball out a little quicker. I think the offensive line was a mess, but there was some times where processing-wise, it took a little slow for him, and that comes with being a rookie. Game speed is quicker. You got to process a little faster. Those are all a part of the growing pains that every single quarterback in the NFL goes through. Now, you're going to hate me for saying this. I think of these 3 quarterbacks, I believe the most in Jackson Dart. I am very bullish on the Giants, and I'll be honest with you. I hate the fact that I'm very bullish on the Giants because I know a lot of Giant fans, and they've been very cocky since John Harbaugh hired. Oh, we're making the playoffs, and I'm just that lonely Jet fan sitting in the corner, take my Aaron Glenn and Geno Smith and go home. Jackson Dart, to me, I think out of the flashes from Dart, in my opinion, last year, and maybe it's just because it's very possible it's because I live in the New York market. I will be 100% transparent that I follow the Giants more than I do the Titans. I watched more Giant games last year, saw more of Jackson Dart last year than I did Cam Ward. I'll be 100% transparent with you. So maybe that's part of it. And I hear about Jackson Dart 365 days a year because the Jets and the Giants are a talking point all the time. But I don't know, man. Dart's mobility, just the way just some of the flashes that we saw from him last year, some of the life that he injected into the room. He's got to protect himself, no doubt. That is, I think, one of the biggest things. He's got to learn how to protect himself. This is a guy that had a few blue tent incidents last year. You got to protect yourself or else you're never going to survive in this league. Dart plays a lot like Josh Allen, but he's not built like Josh Allen. You got to learn how to play and protect your body. But the mobility, the dual threat kind of nature of his game, I think tops both of Cam Ward and Tyler Shook. And I think the passing ability is right there close. And, I'm very high on the Giants this year. I think there's a very good chance the Giants this year are the Bears of last year where they can make a push towards the playoffs. I really do. So I think it's Dart, personally, out of these 3.
See, this is where it gets so tough for me because, I really like Jackson Dart in college. I know we spoke about it often when he was in college. Something about turning on Ole Miss and watching Dart and Trey Harris kind of just destroy the SEC. I enjoyed it. Dart has an aura to him. Dart has a swag to him that makes him very likable. The part of me that is hate watching Jackson Dart just for this year. After this year, when we're talking about 27, 28, Jackson Dart can go win the MVP, and I don't care. But for this year, I have to hate watch the Giants and Jackson Dart because you're in this category. The hype that they are getting, it's like we're talking about this, and I could be wrong, but we're acting like this Giants team just went out there and added Justin Jefferson to the roster, and Dart has Malik Neighbors, and Justin Jefferson and LT has decided to come out of retirement and run the ball. The Giants roster's not that good. You have Malik Neighbors.
No, I'm right there with you. Yeah.
They did. What can you tell me what year we're in real quickly, briefly? What year are we in right now?
2026.
They just signed Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah.
And Juju
it's funny
to that roster.
It's funny. I talked about this yesterday with somebody. Not to, compliment myself too much, but I feel like I have to give myself a little bit of a pat on the back. Not to bring up the Knicks, but signing Odell Beckham Jr., I put together this comparison. Signing Odell Beckham Jr. to the Giant fans out there that think Odell Beckham Jr. has a chance to play a role on this team, that's like a Knick fan at the beginning of this past season signing Melo to the vet minimum and thinking he has a chance to crack the starting 5.
100.
I'm so tired. I'm right there with you. I'm so tired of the Giant fan talking about Odell Beckham like, oh, we got Neighbors and Beckham, that 1-2 punch. If Odell Beckham is your number 2 receiver at any point this season, that means something went terribly, terribly wrong. Beckham at most is your 6th or 5th receiver,
Yeah.
who, if he has a bad training camp, I think there's a very good chance he flat out retires as a New York Giant. I do. People have to realize Beckham did not play in the league last year. He didn't. This guy hasn't caught a pass since December of 2024. The last season he played in the NFL, he had 9 catches the entire year. He hasn't caught a touchdown since 2023. The Odell Beckham days are way behind him. There is a very good chance that he comes out at training camp and looks absolutely cooked and just flat out retires. And I'm sure he'll be at peace with it because he'll have retired a Giant. He gave it one last shot, and it is what it is. Him and Harbaugh, they have connections with Baltimore. Harbaugh likes Beckham. I think Beckham respects Harbaugh. He's not a guy that's going to come in and cause chaos. He's definitely matured. I'll give him that. He's not the same head case that he was his first stint with the Giants, where he's, hugging the kicking net, all those different things, the Josh Norman incidents, the boat picture. Like, there was a lot of immature things that Beckham did when he was with the Giants, and that happens a lot with players in the NFL. He was a young player in New York City. That's sometimes a recipe for disaster. A young, immature player in the biggest sports market in the world. But he's matured, but he's not the same player. I'm right there with you. Not to cut you off, but.
Oh, you're good, because I'm glad you brought that up. That's very important. The whole moral of it, what you said, what I said, this is not the same guy. And at the end of the day, you have to play who's on your schedule. You can't overlook teams. But right now, if I'm Dallas and Christian Parker, and I'm just like, okay, so if you're going to roll out, because Malik Neighbors is not playing week 1. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. No. Unless Malik Neighbors takes the Captain America serum, I just don't think he's playing week 1. So if you're Christian Parker and the Giants are rolling out, if all these guys make the roster, Odell, Juju Smith, and Darius Slayton in week 1 against the defense, you're just like, okay. And Cam Scatterboo's running the ball, you're just like, okay. So for the Giants team, it's like, I want to believe in Dart because, again, I really do like Jackson Dart. I really do like the Harbaugh hire. But this is not a very good roster. It's not like they put a bunch of guys together that we knew could, be something special. They are banking off this young quarterback, basically putting on a cape and elevating a bunch of guys around him that aren't able to be elevated. So I want to see the Giants be good. Like, the NFC East is so much better when Dallas, Philly, and the Giants are all good. It makes it so competitive.
Yep.
And those late season, matchups between those 3 teams when they play each other, they mean so much. But I just think the Giants are so overhyped for a guy, and I know his situation was also very bad, but for a guy that was 4-8 as a starter last year, the roster didn't get any better, and all they did was add a new coach. It was not any coach, but you added a new coach, and you expect him to go out there and completely just win 11, 12 games. I could be wrong, but I just don't see it happening.
I'm right. Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said in terms of the talent. I do think there is some question marks, no doubt. Darnell Mooney's coming off of one of his worst seasons of his career. I guess for me, it's just the coaching, I think, is going to take a huge step forward. This was a team with Jackson Dart last year that showed flashes with Mike Kafka leading the way. Yeah. Harbaugh, much more structure. I also just think, looking at Dart, he's got the, and as the kids would say, he's got the aura about him. Like, he's got the makeup of a New York athlete. Yeah. He is, he's a good football player. He is definitely somebody that is not afraid to shy away from the spotlight. He's going to go around the city. He's going to be spotted places. Like, he's got the New York quarterback aura about him. And I do think there is something to that. I think Daniel Jones was very much the opposite. I think Dart can handle the pressure. He's confident. He comes across as a very confident player. He can handle the pressure in this city. I think he can handle the criticism. And I definitely think he is going to definitely enjoy and ride the success. I think Daniel Jones was the opposite, more of that quiet, more reserved type of player, not much of a personality. And I think the struggles in the media kind of ate away at him.
Yeah.
And I guess you could probably look at Eli and say things differently, because Eli is probably also more of that business-like quarterback, but you get the point. I think when looking at Dart and just his dual threat ability, the possibility, the potential between him and Cam Scatterboo and that dual threat offense, I think it's a scary thing. And I think it's something that coaching-wise, they can probably exploit that, and that could kind of benefit or, I guess, hide some of the talent deficiencies, if you will. Because I do think Cam Scatterboo and Dart work well together. So. Now.
We'll see. We'll see.
Now, I'm curious. You have Cam Ward 1. Is Shuck 2?
I have Shuck at 3. I did want to touch on
okay.
Shuck here before. I know we got to wrap up pretty soon. It's kind of crazy how last year in the offseason, we are talking about that Steph Curry version of what Tyler Shuck did at the combine, the no look, or spin around whatever ball into the dirt. And we laughed. We said, what are the Saints doing when they drafted this guy? I like what I saw from him last year. They were competitive. His numbers weren't great, but he did have a winning record as a starter. He stepped in, he was 5-4. And you look at the Saints, very similar to these other two guys. Not a lot of talent. Obviously, Chris Olave just dealing with the injury history, the concussions kind of put a damper on, Shuck's ability. Alvin Kamara is not the same back. Kellen Moore, year 1, with basically trying to assert a new system.
Yeah.
But for Shuck to step in, 5-4 as a starter, 10 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and that division as weak as it is, I think they can be good. And I feel like every time we talk about the NFC South, it's a new team. Oh, it can be the Saints. Wait, it might be the Panthers. The Bucs are still there. Like every week it switches because that's how bad the division is. But you just look at the Saints and Tyler Shuck. Kellen Moore, obviously in Dallas, obviously in Philly. We know what he can do as an offensive coordinator. And he still has his fingerprint as an offensive coordinator in some sort in New Orleans. So now you go out of free agency for the Saints. You bring in Travis Etienne, which is going to be such a huge deal for that 1-2 punch, him and Kamara. I honestly think Shuck with another year under Kellen Moore, under his belt, you bring in a running back that is very versatile. Now you have 2 versatile backs. If Chris Olave can stay healthy, and honestly, I'm going to say a guy who was very underrated last year. Am I forgetting his name? No. Juwan Johnson was very good last year. I don't care what people say. That was a very serviceable tight end for the Saints. I think
he had a career year.
Yeah.
He's always been one of the more underrated players. You talk about consistency. He's been very, very solid. He's been rock solid for New Orleans, and he had a huge year last year, almost upwards to 900 yards, I believe it was his career year by a lot. And I remember he was a free agent too.
Yeah.
I remember he was a guy that I looked at just from a Jet standpoint as potentially coming in for tight end help. He was somebody that had a little bit of interest, but not much around the NFL. New Orleans got him back, and he had a really good year. And then you add Jordan Tyson to the mix too. Now,
forgot about
plus Olave. There's some intrigue there. Yeah. Look, here's what I'll say about Shuck, and I probably agree with you that he's probably number 3 on this list too. I don't think Shuck is elite. I don't think he is that guy that's necessarily going to pop off the charts from just like highlight plays, But he feels like a winner. He feels like a guy that, and he proved it. This was a team last year that wasn't very good. We all kind of knew they weren't going to be very good. And for a second-round pick to come in and do what he was able to do, he's just a winner, man. Like he makes some big, big plays. He had the one, I think it was against Tampa, was it? It wasn't the best game from a stat standpoint for him, but he had that, I think, rushing touchdown late. Like he made a few big plays late in games last year. He feels like that type of player that I don't think he's going to be ever a 3,800 yard, 40 touchdown MVP. I think Cam Ward, Jackson Dart has more of those, more of those high potential type of seasons. I think Shuck can be a rock solid quarterback, but he's a winner, a guy that in late situations can just step up, make a big play, be a guy that the team rallies around. You kind of saw some of that. They truly rallied around him last year. They were a very competitive football team at the end of the season after starting out the year pretty much dead in the water.
Yeah, you have brought up a great point. We just rally around him and bringing up some of those moments. He has a clutch factor that you don't see a lot of guys have in their rookie season. No. And you don't.
Especially a second-round pick.
Don't even start. Like, he's a second-round pick, so that's a very good point.
Yeah. And he's a bit on the older end, too. I think that has to factor into it when considering, he's 26? I think he'll be 27 in September. So you're talking about a guy that's only like 3 years away from already being, he's not even going to be done with his rookie contract, and he's already going to be like 30. So that I do think affects him too when comparing Dart and Cam Ward, just longevity-wise and growth-wise. Dart and Cam Ward at 28, 29 will probably be better than Shuck just because they'll have a lot more years under their belt.
Yeah.
So there are outside factors, but Shuck, I don't think can be just thrown to the side. He's a winner, clutch plays. For a guy that stepped in late last season, Kellen Moore, look, the NFC South is wide open. Every year it's wide open. Who's to say the Bucs don't completely fall apart and they really restart things? They fell apart last year. Todd Bowles on the hot seat. Baker Mayfield at the final year of his contract. There's a chance they completely, rip things apart. Carolina will be in the mix again. Atlanta, I think, is as bad as anybody. I mean, Michael Penix and Tua battling it out. That's just, I'm sorry, Falcons fans. You're not going to see any good spirals at training camp. And then the Saints, they're going to be in the mix. They're going to be in the mix. I mean, 8-9 won the division last year. The Saints went 6-11. True. Two games go a different way, and they're right in the mix last year. You got to take into account, too, just the weakness of the NFC South. Yeah. So, anyway, any closing thoughts? I think we've hit it all.
Yeah, I think we hit it all. All in all, thank you guys for watching again after, we took off last week. Appreciate you for tuning back in, and we will see you next week with a very interesting topic. I'm not going to spoil it, yes. But if you are not a fan of a winning team, you're going to hate next week. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes, which means I will probably hate it at times as well.
And me as well, as I'm doing my research.
Yeah. Yes. So we will be back next week. Fun topic for you guys. Stay tuned for that. Obviously won't spoil anything. Just have to wait. So appreciate you all as always. Stay tuned. Big show next week. Looking forward to it. And until then, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next week.